Asia has been quite active on the deep tech side. We need to bring in partners and build partnerships to bring in talent, to bring in the technology, to bring in the know-how to support the ecosystem.
Well, I mean, and Mohammed, so you've pushed a lot of the banks to be very innovative on the cloud. That puts Bahrain in quite an interesting position in the region. How do you think there's an opportunity for the banks to take advantage of that?
Yeah, look, our goal with the banks is get the law out of the way as much as possible, so that you have, again, frictionless momentum to do whatever you want to do. Get tender processes and things limited, get audit requirements minimized, so that when they decide to take a stab at it, they can. And we spend a lot of time talking to banks about, design, architecture. Think about what your core business is. How can your core business change? Are you buying a product that fits your core business, or are you buying something because, everybody needs to buy, and nobody got fired for buying an IBM,
yep.
Right? So I think you're finding a greater willingness from these companies to engage in that space. What you're still finding limitations on is talent pool. And even when these companies actively want to engage, they often don't know where to find that talent to help them engage with it. That's why they spend a lot of time becoming customers of companies outside, because it's a 3-4 year process to build the talent internally. So we spend a lot of time with schools and universities. We spend a lot of time building out vocational training programs and making those vocational training programs free. And we're working on initiatives to help facilitate private sector investment into R&D, into these companies, and building out that space. Because again, it's all about trying to remove the friction from that element. Now, the talent pool that we've been developing in Bahrain with respect to cloud, and cloud is an interesting one because EDB is very project driven. So we don't like to get into theoretical exercises typically without a project sitting on the other end of the spectrum. Amazon gave us one of those projects that we could actively work on. We recognized a 40% year-on-year growth in cloud in the region. We recognized 500,000 people as a gap globally in trying to move cloud services on. And we said, well, look, this is a particular sector where we can really make a dent in the market, because now we have the ability to do what, for instance, Intel did in Israel, which was have a company that is generating talent, and that is outputting that talent back into the industry, so that talent is there and investable for companies that are looking to do R&D because it's trained up. Again, this is a 5-year process. And whenever it comes down to R&D, it's never going to be an overnight process. You have countries like Singapore, which have billions of dollars in funding in their R&D budgets. Bahrain doesn't have that today. So we look at the resources that we already have, which are schools, universities, companies, and we actively engage and work with them on building out the talent pools that are investable.
Yeah, I'd like to
Perfect.
build,
I mean, that's exactly it. Without that, that's how we're going to change.
Yeah, I like to build on the role of R&D institutions and technology transfer institutions. I mean, it's a global trend where you would find thriving, investors and business and private sectors around education campuses around the world. So we need those type of institutions to be able. Okay, the digitization part is good. It's we need online business, etc. But there is deep science opportunities that we can develop and we can nurture in this part of the world. So I think we need to also focus on those parts of it. In UAE, recently, the government mandated all the universities now to become free zones. So universities will start to sign up companies, give license, and set up entrepreneurs. So the whole education in the UAE system has been changed toward this. And I think, with Bahrain, I think Bahrain is a great city and a great country to really lead on certain industries like finance, for example. And I think you have the talents here. You have a very good government regulations. The environment is very positive So I think yes, the role of education is key, and the private sector, we spoke about it earlier, I think. We need also the private sector to play a role, because at the moment, in our part of the world, the private sector, when they come to supporting, let's say, entrepreneurship, they come from a background of corporate social responsibility, and that has to change, I think. I think the government can play a role, and in the UAE, we are calling for, instead of corporate social responsibility, corporate research or deep science responsibility. So these companies have to embed an integral part of their budget allocated to research. And that's the only way I think we can, because we don't charge them taxes, right? So there's no incentives for them to really contribute. So it has to have a structure.
Yeah, I want to just add, because Bahrain has had this policy of cloud first already for the government as well. They're already encouraging. AWS is here. Now it is more on the private sector to adopt this cloud, which you're rightly doing with the banking sector, but even the IT organizations which are servicing, because we have a lot of IT companies here, they need to be getting on that, and they need to be encouraged somehow, or maybe incentivized from the government side. And the government at the same time trying to find out some quick wins. When we say quick wins, is that if there are companies who are more focused on big data, analytics, and they can prove some, then the government should be encouraging or supporting them and highlighting them. That
Perfect.
quick wins will encourage them, change the mindset overall.
Okay, well, this is great. So, I mean, I think, Carl, we were talking earlier about, like, we need a document which says how things are going to change. I think what we're going to do, Danny, is we're going to take this panel's transcript and we're going to write it up and release it as a blueprint for change. So I'm going to do the last quick question. So if you're a startup here in the region, or if you're a founder and you're thinking about going into, I'm going to ask you, what two things, or what's two sectors do you think that are really interesting for the region to be strong in? As a founder, I want to get in. What do you think is going to be a great sector to get into that's going to be strong in the region?
Me first?
Yeah.
So
We've got a few founders out
I
here.
have two sectors in mind to that question. What I would first say is follow your passion, because if you're not passionate about it, the road to being a startup is rife with difficulty. And this is not a rosy follow your passion thing, because you're going to feel pain. You're gonna go through ups and downs, and if you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you're gonna drop it. But beyond following your passion, where I see potential synergies and a lot of opportunity personally, is first of all, anything cloud. Cloud's growing at a rate of 40% year on year. Everybody's moving into software as a service as a format. The CapEx is decreasing, everything is decreasing in this space. So anything cloud. Fintech is a huge opportunity. Bahrain's really taking the lead here.
Yep.
With our new open banking standards and the regulator being open, there's an opportunity for private sector companies that are looking to function on the adjacencies of banks and to pick up opportunities there, and then potentially even to become challengers themselves, to connect into people's bank accounts and offer added value services. That's huge. And then the last point I'd make, or the last sector I would look at, is IoT and /AI. The opportunities in Bahrain in particular are tremendous. Across the region, they're quite high. But just to give you a couple of examples.
We're going to have to keep moving. Yep, so quickly, Khaled,
I would
we've
definitely
got three there, perfect.
Definitely agree with Sheikh. And in addition, IoT, definitely yes, is a major sector. Specifically, when you are linked to Greater Bay China, which is today the hardware city of the world. And I think we already have that in Bahrain through a leading accelerator.
Perfect. Mirza?
Okay. I just want to make one point. I know time stops. The part which you mentioned, the passion part, also add to that if somebody wants to set up a company, then they need to solve a problem which they are being impacted with as well, or their community is being impacted. So that can be scaled. And then I go with yours with the fintech part and cybersecurity. I'll add to that. That's my area.
I think digitization.
Sorry?
Digitization.
Just digitization, which is a big thing. Great. Thank you very much to the panel. Thank you very much for everyone here. We're going to write that one up. Excellent. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank, and thank you, our guest speakers, for such valuable insight and experience. Next, we're going to have Amazon Web Services, talking about the culture of innovation.
Good morning. Marhaba. This is quite an opportunity. I really enjoy the chance to talk to startups, and I see a lot of you in the field. I also see some faces that I recognize. I'm going to just push this back 1 second. There you go. So my name is Zubin Chagpar. I look after the Amazon Web Services business for public sector across the Middle East and Africa. Doesn't sound very startup-ish-y, but I do also have a startup background, if you will. I've made the great decision to invest in startups. They keep me awake at night as I work with them. They're in different fields across startups. I've had the chance to talk to startup enthusiasts on a weekly basis through the Startup Digest, where there's about 50,000 folks there that get to read some things being sent out by great bloggers across the world. And also, I've developed a course on rapid prototyping that I unleash on unsuspecting students as well too. So a little bit of startup cred. I'm also happy because today I get to wear jeans instead of having to wear a suit as well too, which is always nice. I was asked to speak about innovation and the culture of innovation at Amazon. I hope this is of interest to you. I'm going to go through this presentation with you, and what we're going to highlight is what is Amazon. I believe that most of you probably have heard of Amazon, which is fantastic, but I'll touch on the actual history of Amazon and how innovation is part of what we do on a regular basis. I'll also touch on what is the culture of innovation at Amazon, and then I'll jump into some of the organizing principles that we use to continue to invent and to develop on behalf of our customers. This slide presentation is getting ahead of me right here, so let me jump right into it. So Amazon itself started in 1994 as a startup. This is not me trying to sell my home, by the way. This is the original home that the startup began in. It's what we call one of those garages. And in those garages, we were actually wrapping up books and sending out. And when I say we, this was the founding team, not me, myself, back in 1994. Very important is, during that time, we were highlighting that what we want to do, and I'm just going to jump right here. This actually came from our shareholder letter from our founder, Jeff Bezos, is that we want to have a day one focus. And this is probably where we can define what innovation means. Innovation has many definitions, but the one that I'll use is that you're constantly changing the status quo. You're not going into a mode of what we call day two, where you're in stasis, where you're just accepting that you might have a great or the best product, you don't change it, you try to continue to develop that in terms of incremental or no updates, and you leave that out there with your customers. We take an approach that our customers are loyal until you don't delight them anymore. And that means on a daily basis, when we wake up, we think about our customers and how we can optimize. Let me highlight that through examples. First of all, in terms of some of the history, many of you probably know Amazon as a bookseller. Anybody bought a book from Amazon? Thank you for that. We're still selling books. They're still available. You can go online today and buy books. And that's how we started. And it allowed us to really test a hypothesis, and I'll show you an example of that later. But the hypothesis was, hey, will people actually buy books online? And it was really easy for us to do that in terms of shipping a book, because they're flat. You can put them into a box. You can send them out as well, too. And an advantage we had as well, too, is that if you looked at a traditional bookstore, they wouldn't have millions of books at their disposal. They would only have a certain amount of shelf space that they could put a book on. But for us, if we put it online, we can actually almost make every single book available and then be able to send it out to a customer, too. So it allowed us to test out a hypothesis and move from there. Today, we're operating in many different spaces, so you can see that we're I'm just going to see the different views here, but this is all good. So you can see that we're doing drone development, video streaming, we've got some grocery delivering, and also in the corner there we have Amazon Web Services, which is the area that I represent as well too. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. Now, this is what we call a fulfillment center, not a warehouse. It could be